One of my absolute favorite people in the e-commerce business is Nate Legos from Original Grain. This is another one of my Profit Monsters interviews, and that's because Original Grain has just grew 100% last year and is on pace to grow 100% again this year, is in the mid 8 figures, has been profitable at every step of the way while growing that much. They're a killer business selling watches and other men's accessories, and they do a lot of things really well. The bulk of this conversation is me talking to Nate, who's the VP of marketing there, the highest level marketer at the company, about how they approach product and price. And we tried to get really hands-on here. The goal for all these interviews is to look at what is driving profitability in these fast-growing businesses, and then to figure out how to communicate that in a way that you can learn from and actually implement in your business as clearly as possible. So we talked a lot about Nate's and Original Grain's approach to product release, everything from how they conceptualize which products to release, as well as how they go about actually releasing them, like what's the email and SMS strategy and all those things. And then we also talked a lot about price testing, which is something you are not thinking about enough in your business, I can almost guarantee you, and how big of an impact that has had for Nate and for Original Grain. Nate is one of the most original thinkers in e-commerce that is in the conversation right now. I love talking with Nate. It's his third time on the show. That's how much of a believer I am in his content. He is just really awesome. And so strap in. We start on all the good stuff, all the Nate Legos original things, like how much Red Bull is everybody drinking and did the moon landing really happen? And then from there, we get into all the product and price stuff. This is a great conversation. You're going to learn a lot from it. Nate Legos, VP of Marketing, Original Grain. Let's get into it. I think you're a 3-time returning champion here. I think this is your 3rd time on my show. Both of the previous 2 are great. That puts you, yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of things in your marketing career that probably make you feel like you've really made it, but probably none more than that, right?
That's top 3 for sure. I think buying a house, some financial milestones, and then 3-time Andrew Ferris podcast appearance is right there.
Yeah, that it should be. Let's get right into it. What you were talking about on X just moments ago. Most important conversation topic we could possibly have. The moon landing didn't happen. Go for it, Nate. Tell us why that's the case.
Yeah, I can give you the 30-second rundown. After we pardoned a bunch of Nazis and brought them over here to found NASA, we were not as good at rockets as the Russians. JFK promised we'd go to the moon this decade, and then the CIA killed him. But then to kind of avenge his death, Nixon was like, we got to go. So he did it that decade with 6 months to spare. Every rocket that went up before that exploded before it got to space, and then the next 5 somehow went to the moon and back with no problems. And then Nixon resigned for lying about some other stuff. So not the most convincing argument for me. And we haven't been back, so I don't know.
All right, there it is. I think this is actually one of those things that I have no opinion on, but I have a really good friend who, actually my business partner in a brand I'm starting, he has said forever that the moon landing didn't happen. And a little bit like you, I can't really tell if he's serious about it or not. There's like a lot of things that you do that I'm like, I'm like, what's your percentage likelihood? Like I don't know if this is like breaking news, but for example, I have it on good authority that you actually don't drink that much whiskey, and that you like, maybe put it a different way, that you don't have a problematic relationship with alcohol, but
Correct.
that might shatter your image if people know that. So I never know what's marketing with you and what's real,
When I meet people in person, they want to drink with me all night, and I have to tell them, like, hey, no, listen, I tweet out every drink I have. So when
that's like 4 a week.
Yeah, when you see me tweet 1, I'm not having 7 more after the fact. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right. So I did seriously consider getting a Red Bull and like maybe even chugging it for this episode, but I have other things to do today. Yeah, I know you've got yours. And I do think my heart might literally explode if I did that. I haven't had a Red Bull for a long time. So anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go follow Nate on X. And actually, before we get anywhere else, you should follow Nate on X, as well as his incredibly good podcast, Tactical and Practical, which is also short, which is great. Unlike this show, which some would consider me verbose, perhaps would be a word that you could use to describe me. But the Nate stuff is really good and really focused on like exactly how you do things and how you grow. And you should listen to Nate, because I find you to be an interesting voice, which is in that you are like, for example, I don't really care at all. I mean, like literally at all, that we disagree about manual bids in a meta ads account. It strikes me as something that I think you're probably doing wrong, but there's so many things that you are doing right that are serious needle movers in the business. And I think almost anybody who employs manual bids would say this is the case, that is actually, driving so much value in the business that you've got great perspective. And a lot of that perspective is outside of these little detailed tactics, which is funny because you do a lot of tactical stuff as well. So what I want to actually start with is, like, what do you think? Original Grain's been insanely successful as a brand in a pretty hard category. Watches, I think, is a hard category in a lot of ways. And you guys are now mid 8 figures. You grew 100% last year. You're on pace to grow 100% again this year. You've been profitable the whole way. You still acquire customers profitably. What is the core driver of your guys' growth, success, profit, all sustained over a long period of time? What do you think? There's probably a lot of things, but what does that come down to?
It starts with product, for sure. I'd love to say it's our media buying strategy that I do disagree with you on. I'd love to say it's our PRO strategy, which is the next evolution of CRO, which we'll get into in a minute. But with watches especially, it's product. Like, we have released a lot of product in the last 3 years, maybe 100 watches over 3 years. And we are meeting these days talking about, we still don't think we're launching enough. And it's very, very clear to us. We've released different collections or different individual SKUs that like really change the trajectory of the business more than anything I can do in the ad account, more than anything I can do with creating content. Product I think is king. I think we all kind of believe that content's king, but you can have the best content in the world of a subpar product, and that's only going to get you so far. And the guys, the brothers and co-founders, Ryan and Andrew, do a great job designing everything, and makes my job a lot easier when they hit a home run on a watch.
So let's talk like a little more tactically about this. This is the thing people talk about a lot, is product. But what I want to do is try to take that to a level that is like something that you can actually grab onto for somebody listening to or watching this. So let's say again, in the last year, how many products did you guys release, did you say?
In the last year, probably 50 plus.
Is that 50 individual product release moments, or is that 50 variations within like maybe 10 moments or something like that?
Yeah, probably 20 of those fit into like collections of 4 or 5.
Okay.
And then the rest are all one-offs.
So how often is your customer getting an email from you guys saying we released a new product?
Right now, probably 2 to 3 times a month. The goal for next year is to have that every week.
Yeah. So I think this is so striking. If you look back, like one of the things I think whenever I talk to somebody in your well, really at any business stage, I try to think about like, what does a person one business stage before you need to hear? You know, so it's like, if you guys are mid 8 figures, what if I'm early 8 figures and I'm starting to look down the barrel of this and going like, I don't know if more meta ads creative is the answer here.
Yeah.
How do I actually get to mid 8 figures? So if you're doing 2 or 3 a month right now, let's say you guys, when you were early 8 figures, do you have any sense of sort of how much product you're releasing then?
A little bit less, probably 1 to 2 drops a month.
Do you think the volume of drops, before we actually talk about the quality of the product, the volume of drops has been an important needle mover in getting you guys to that next stage, 100% growth again last year?
I think the volume matters because of the speed in which you find new winners. So like in fashion, you know, the guys are great watch designers and they have a great eye for things, but like we're not batting 1,000 on, you know, what we think is going to do well. So we kind of look at it as we're just getting in our at bats. We're just getting ourselves more chances to find something that hits, and that volume, that increased volume, allows us to do that faster. And then on the flip side, we don't really worry about the flops because we're big enough at that point where, you know, we'll sell 100 to 250 of pretty much anything we release. So we're not scared about getting stuck with inventory because everything comes out in that first small batch. And yeah, the volume just helps us get to winners quicker.
Let's talk about those small batches for a second, because this is actually the tactical element of this that I think is really important. One of the things that stops people from doing this is that the lift of developing the product plus the risk to, your cost is pretty high. So do you guys have like a reasonably low MOQ that you can order from your manufacturer that allows you to essentially test this? This is getting outside of the realm of marketing, but I'm assuming you have some awareness of how this is all fitting together.
Yeah, we can do 100 of anything, which, 100 watches at $300 a piece, and that's $30K. Like, that's not a crazy amount of revenue to do from a drop. And while there is a lot of cost with, custom tooling and manufacturing and then new content, like, there's a lot of cost that goes into 100 watches. And then we got to try to figure out how to advertise a new watch. So often that first 100, will not be profitable. But we kind of look at it like an investing strategy of like, well, 1 for every 10 that hits is going to pay for everything and pay for, 100% growth for next year.
Like a VC model, basically. You're saying like, yeah, okay, because the winners are so outsized, right, in the value creation. Yeah, because you've also got to design the watch. You've got to do all kinds of things. When you look at those watch designs, let's talk about what kinds of designs you're doing. Like, when you talk about these different kinds of watches, I have a lot of questions right now about all this. When you guys do that, is it simple design changes? Like, I know you guys do a lot of collabs. You've talked about in the past on my show, doing stuff, watches made out of old whiskey barrels, and then, doing a collab with, different, I think you're with Jack right now. Yeah. So, you're doing collabs with Jack Daniels. Like, you've got, I think Taylor Guitars has been in there somewhere.
Yep.
I think my older brother got a Taylor guitar one, probably based on something you wrote.
Thank you.
Yeah. But so some of those things, how many of those product releases are like full on collab type, like licensed drops versus just like design changes, new kind of collection?
Yeah. So the way we kind of like approach product development is we either go into it thinking we're going to design a product that amplifies something we already do, that our current customers and customers like them are going to love, and it's a pretty safe bet. The other side of the coin is we're going to do something that hopefully opens up ourselves to a new audience, that hopefully increases our TAM. So that's kind of how we approach all product. And then with the collabs, like, we've done whiskey barrel watches for 7 years. So the collab with Jack was something that like we knew was going to crush. We knew this was just going to amplify what we're doing to a bigger, badder audience. We knew our current customers would like it. Whereas when we partner with someone like a Taylor Guitars, or we have collabs coming out in the next couple of weeks with Coors Banquet and Ford, we are hoping that opens us up to a new group of people who previously might not have had the best reason to buy from us, but we're going to tap into something that hopefully they're already passionate about.
I don't know a better group of people to help you build an excellent business with than my friends at More Staffing. More Staffing is the Philippines-based staffing agency that staffs positions at every level of e-commerce businesses, of agency businesses, and has been doing it for a while with real excellence because they come from a D2C background. They know what kind of people you need. And if you are thinking about hiring in the Philippines, which is where More Staffing is going to reach for talent for your business, as they're based in the Philippines. If you're thinking about hiring talent in the Philippines as just like $5 an hour virtual assistants, you are thinking about it wrong. You should instead be doing what I do in my business, which is find a range of levels of employees, from graphic designers and video editors and coordinator level positions, all the way up through like manager, director level positions, etc. I'll just tell you, I am starting a brand right now. I have an agency. I am beginning to think Philippines first in the way that I'm thinking about my hiring, because I've been so pleased with the team that More Staffing has helped me build internally, both at the level of talent and at the level of price. The value proposition here is fairly simple, which is that by paying towards the higher end of the Philippines-based market, you are going to attract incredible talent in your business, people with deep D2C e-commerce resumes. They understand the worlds of marketing, digital advertising, supply chain operations. I'm looking at accounting right now. I'm looking at all kinds of stuff in my business, and people are going to come with great resumes across all of those parts of the business. And because you are paying at the mid to high end of the Philippines-based market, you are going to attract better quality talent than other people will, and still have that be meaningfully less expensive for your business. than what would happen if you tried to hire equivalent talent in the US. I'm at a point now where I really don't know why businesses wouldn't be thinking about hiring in the Philippines, because especially there is a resource like More Staffing that can really help you get connected to great talent, and because More will give you a 1-year guarantee on talent they place in your business, which is way longer than most hiring firms would be, right? So if somebody doesn't work out for a whole year in your business, they will replace that person for free. And so that's why so many people who have listened to my ad reads for More Staffing over the last year and a half of partnering with them have continued to work with them over time, have re-upped, and have hired more people with them. You should be considering it too. Go to morestaffing.co/AF, morestaffing.co/AF to get started in a conversation today with hiring incredible talent from the Philippines in your business with More Staffing. So in the process of the design, you guys are actively thinking about, this is a product for a new customer versus a returning customer.
Yep.
That's really interesting. I think this is part of the thing that's really underrated, and the reason why product is so important here, which is like this notion of expanding your ability to grow by really with either of those, right? Because it could be an LTV driver. It could also be, I imagine for you guys especially, it's so much about the ability to drive new customer reach. And I think a lot of brands get stalled out, especially when they get to that sort of like, a few $100,000 a month in spend. If they're not in a category with like a monster TAM to begin with, like t-shirts or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you're in that category, then yeah, go ahead and release more t-shirts for forever, or go ahead and run more ads for forever and see how far you can push it. But like, although you also got to release product there. But yeah, anyway, the point being, like, if you think about in a category like yours, like, how do I get to that next customer? That is the mechanism for how you grow the business. Like, it's like, you have to have something that appeals to new customers. Like, and so when you guys think about sort of the next stage, getting to 9 figures or whatever the stage is in front of you, like, is that what you're thinking? Or are you guys thinking outside of this category of watches? Like, does Original Grain expand into, I don't know, hats made out of whiskey barrels or something?
Yeah, we think the next chapter of growth and the next few chapters of growth are going to come from more and better watches. We sell a decent amount of wedding rings and necklaces and bracelets and sunglasses, and they do okay. But for us, like, we're a watch company, and we've looked around the industry. There's not really a watch company that does other stuff well. And we don't feel a need from our customers to diversify too much more into different categories than we have. The only other new categories you're going to see from us for the next year or so are what I would consider more like LTV or upsell items. So like, we're launching pens here in a little bit. It's not going to be an acquisition tool. It's not going to be a new hero SKU. But if I can get a 5% take rate on a pen upsell for $50, I'll be pumped about that. So we have, in the last couple of years, nearly doubled our AOV. And a big part of that has been building higher end, more premium watches. 2 years ago, our number one selling watch cost $200. Today, there's a new watch that has taken the throne. That one costs $350.
That's a huge deal.
That's a big deal for us. And we launched one yesterday that costs $750. And we've got more in the pipeline that are priced anywhere between, $700 and $1,500. So we think pushing up market's going to be important for us. And then continuing on with our new partnerships as well.
And you're purposefully testing with a $750 watch, I assume. You're purposefully going like, can we actually get this kind of money from our customer?
Yeah, so the first test was actually a year ago with bundles. We put together a series of 3 and 5 watch bundles that were priced anywhere between like $600 and $1,500 to see like, hey, are there people who come to originalgrain.com today that only give us $400 because that's all we're offering them? Are there people who would give us more? And we're kind of blown away at the amount of people who are coming to buy a $1,000 bundle and to buy a $1,500 bundle. So that was like phase 1 of testing. That kind of gave us the confidence to be like, all right, let's go develop much higher end watches, because there are customers coming to our website today who are willing to spend a lot more money.
Yeah. They have that money in their wallet that they can allocate towards this kind of a purchase for themselves, for a gift, whatever. Yeah. And yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, I have a lot of other questions still about the sort of the product release strategy, because I do think, like, this is getting a little more traction and awareness, I think, in current conversations in D2C circles of just like the importance of great product strategy. But it's so important that I don't want to lose sight of it. So, and there's a way in which you have to operate through every part of the organization, with excellence on all of this. When you think about the product design side, the manufacturing side, the cost side of the business, being able to, like you said, like sell watches that don't sell, kind of take the loss, like do you turn stuff into a sales section of your site? It's sort of like there's a merchandising question, there's a marketing question, there's a photography question, there's all kinds of stuff here. So, so I want to talk a little bit about sort of the breakdown of how you guys actually go about this. So, so who controls the product release schedule? Like when you say you're trying to get you went from 1 to 2 launches a month to 2 to 3, and you want to get to every week, whose job is that, and what needs to happen to make that happen at Original Grain?
Yeah, it's come from looking at a lot of marketing data first, and then Ryan and Andrew, we have a designer as well, are handling like what those products are going to be. But last year, the first 6 months of last year, we launched the most product we ever had. We launched like 30 watches in like 6 months. And when we first analyzed that data, I think we interpreted it wrong. We looked at the revenue from all those SKUs, didn't add up to a ton, and we were like, that felt like a lot of work for not a lot of revenue. We didn't like that. But what we've learned and what we've kind of dug deeper into is that we shouldn't just be measuring the revenue from those SKUs. We should be measuring the revenue from the days where we get to announce a launch, because we'll launch a new Whiskey Barrel watch today, and that watch isn't the one we sell, but we sell way more of the best sellers in that collection. We just got people back to our website because of the hype of the new drop. So that's why I kind of first pressed the issue of like, let's go once a week next year, because it's just going to give us more moments and more things to talk about, more reasons for people to come back to our website. They're probably going to buy the best sellers. It's rare that we get one of these new drops to, become a top 5 watch for us. We've done it twice in the last 2 years. So we don't need everyone to be a home run, but we need everyone to create excitement and create a moment. From there, the guys will look at gaps in our current catalog to see, like, can we make any simple new designs, colorway tweaks, using a different movement or a different silhouette in a current style. Those are like easy, super low-hanging fruit opportunities. And then they will get with our designer and explore, completely new designs and case shapes and movements, and get into all the nitty-gritty of watch stuff. But a big chunk of it has been and will be kind of colorways, line extensions, nothing too revolutionary, but it gets people to click again, and it's been really valuable.
Yeah. Where do you, as the marketing lead, fit into that process? Like you said, you start with analyzing marketing data in some of the ways that you talked about, but where else in that process are you a part of that story?
Yeah, I'm doing things like testing bundles and testing prices to see how price sensitive people are. And then I'm going back to the crew and saying like, hey, people are willing to spend more money on watches than we currently have. Go build something higher end. And then I've gone to them and say, hey, everything we do that's black does really well. Let's go create this style watch in black. And we did that last year, and it's our number 2 selling watch this year. So marketing should definitely be involved and inform some of these decisions, because sometimes it's data that, founders or, the COO or whoever is in charge of your product, it might be data that they're not aware of, but it's data that marketers are used to seeing. So I'll definitely encourage everyone to speak up about like, hey, listen, the customers are telling us to go in this direction. We need to mix it in.
Is there anything that you do actually at the level of product release? So when you actually kind of move this forward, you've got the product. At some point, I assume you're the one sort of leading any messaging around specific things. So like, let's say you do a collab, somebody has to come up with the language and the way you want to present that. Sort of in the planning stage of a product release. And even if it's not a collab, then it's something that you still have to figure out how to frame for people in some way. At some point, X watch is being released in 2 months. What does the beginning of your process look like as you think about sort of the true creative angle of it? How are you approaching this, and what does your team look like? Who's helping you, et cetera?
Yeah, so the blessing and the curse of the watch industry is it takes about a year for us to get anything to market. So from inception to when it rolls out, I have 12 months to figure out how we're going to talk about it, what I want the content to look like. So we have plenty of time, and a lot of the messaging is kind of product driven. If it's something like just a new black variation of a top selling watch, then I'm going to use messaging that has worked for that watch before. The content's going to look and feel similar. But when it's something brand new, like a launch with Coors, I stop drinking Jack for a night, grab a 6-pack of Coors, and me and Chat GPT hang out for an hour. And just start to kick around some ideas. I copy all of their brand copy in there. I put all of ours in, and just start to see the synergies between the brands and start to figure out, like, hey, if someone likes Coors Banquet, what is similar about them that might make them like Original Grain, and just kind of refine the messaging from there. But we like to go with messaging first and then start planning our visuals, so the visuals can kind of tell the story that we want to from our copy.
Like in that example, you'd say these people both have excellent taste, right? Like,
Yeah.
Right? So that would be people who want a little more out of life. They're drinking Coors Banquet beer. They're wearing Original Grain. These are high quality people.
100%. Those are the and like that's a through line for a lot of our collections. Is I always say, like, you don't want to hang out with a guy wearing a Rolex. It's not fun. He's not fun to be around. Original Grain guys are fun to hang out with.
Yes. What do you? Yeah.
Sorry to anyone wearing a Rolex out there, but
no, I agree with you. Oh man, we might have just really alienated my Rolex wearing audience. This could be bad for me.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get canceled by Rolex culture.
Yeah,
and so are you.
Yeah,
you get dragged.
That's all right. I've been canceled by them already, I think.
Okay. So you start building all that creative, sort of get in your artistic mood with all of that. And this is, I think, an underrated thing about you. I think you're just an extremely creative guy in general. Maybe it's not underrated. Maybe people know this about you, but you actually blend that with this like vision for sort of data-driven, tactical thinking about how you do things. And I think, it's funny. I was actually just arguing with people on the internet about whether or not we have to sort of draw a line between data and art or something. And you're actually a great counterexample to this. Like, I'll spare everybody what I want to do, which is go into the baseball analogy he used. I wanted to go into that with you because you would understand it as a former baseball guy too. But this is something that people do, right? There's this mix in this process somewhere between thinking about data and then also trying to think about like creating experiences that are just unique and excellent for people. And there's some risk involved with that. Like you're just going to have to, like you said, you're going to take some swings that don't work. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, but just sort of the relationship between sort of the being data driven, which I think you're extremely data driven. That's one of the things I think about you, but also sort of maintaining some space for creativity and art and doing things that are sort of interesting.
Yeah, you need to. And, there is a third category of product dev that I didn't touch on because I usually don't like to advise people to do this. But if one category is things, we are confident are going to crush because we do something similar already. This next category is, things that we want to reach a new audience. The third category, and it is the smallest one, but the third category is like sometimes we just build shit we want to build. And like sometimes that we just build watches that we want to wear. And it's one of the advantages for me, Andrew and Ryan. We're all guys aged 29 to 34. Like we're a pretty good representation of who our customer base is. So oftentimes when we build something that we want to wear ourselves, our customers respond well to it. But I think that's true in marketing data as well. Like, at the end of the day, you should be going into the direction that the data is telling you, but that can turn into like a never-ending vicious cycle, and it can turn into self-fulfilling prophecy because the data told you to lean a little bit over here, so you leaned over here and keep going and going and going. Whereas like net new ideas have to come from art, like have to come from the creative side of your brain. There was nothing in our data that told us that people who wear original grain cared about their legacy and cared about what they left behind. You can't find that anywhere. But one day I wrote some copy that talked about our watches are built for people who are carving their own path and building themselves the life worth remembering. We tested that on my gut, and it crushed, and it's been our winning brand copy for a couple of years now. So now, again, I'm using the performance data to determine that's right and that we should continue moving in that direction. And one of the reasons we partnered with Coors was because the Coors Banquet tagline is "Start Your Legacy." And I was like, great, I know a bunch of customers who align with that mentality already. But it's got to be a balance. And I think most people that talk about marketing online are too often focused on just the data and not enough the creativity.
I'll tell you why they do that. I'll tell you why I do that a lot, which is that like so many people are ignoring important financial data in their business. And so like, it's because like there's real gains to be had there. And I sort of reject the notion that, that there doesn't need to continue to be more of that talk, right? And not that you're suggesting that that's the case. It's just that like the reason I talk a lot about those things is because you can't tell me everywhere that people are all struggling with profitability or whatever, and then also they need to look at their data less. It's like, no, there's some frameworks you can use and some numbers you can use that can really help you with this. But what I really agree with, and the reason I'm spending so much time in this interview talking about product and product release, is exactly the next part of what you just said, which is like there is this thing that happens where brands stall because, especially brands in categories like yours that are like that are non-refillable products, right? They're not consumable products. They have to exist by making new cool products for people. And that is just, there are some data-driven ways to think about it. You mentioned one earlier, which is like a lot of people are buying this black watch. Let's make another black watch like this. That's a data-driven insight that makes a ton of sense. And same with your comment about like our launch days, we release a new product and then people go buy their old favorite products. That's another data-driven insight. But then you turn that into pairing that with this real sense of brand. And I do think that is like the missing piece sometimes for people. The thing I reject is the notion that those are pitted against each other. Again, like you just spoke to, right? Which is like how these things come together. What I think the way forward here is like get operationally excellent, right? At like integrating data everywhere into your process. Look at how to do that, and then find ways to make things interesting and create brands that are memorable and all that. So at least that's my 2 cents on sort of how those things go together.
That little rant you just went on could sum up and what should be every marketing podcast ever is like get operationally excellent and then build something really cool.
That's right.
That's going to be a winning strategy. That's going to beat tariffs. That's going to beat economic uncertainty. That's going to beat anything.
Yep. And I that's why I think your guys' idea of like build some stuff that we like, fantastic idea. If you have built an operational process where it is not prohibitively expensive to do that, then do it.
Yeah.
Try it, right? Because that's the thing. You're actually just, like you said, you take as many swings as you can. And that's why your operational process is interesting to me. Like, okay, you've got a vendor where it's a year long. That takes a long time. See if you could shorten that. Low MOQs. Like, let's say you release a product and it's a smash hit. How long does it take to get more of it from your manufacturer? Do you know?
Yeah, we're typically 3 months out.
Okay, so that's a little bit long still. You're in a hard category for that, right? People can't just spit out a bunch more white T-shirts.
And we also do bigger batches than 100 when we're more confident in it.
Sure.
Like we have no problem buying 1,000 or 3,000 of a watch that we're very confident are going to crush. But for the ones that we're like, not sure, let's do 100 and see what happens. And then we're sold out for a month, and then we put it on pre-sale for a month, and we're good to go.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from you guys over time as you attack that a little bit more. Again, you're in a category where the manufacturing is not super simple, like for some products, right? So like it'd be interesting to hear from you guys if you tried to really attack that. Like, what happens if you get that 1 year down to 9 months or 6 months? What happens if you get that expansion from 3 months to 1 or 1.5? Like, keep the MOQs low. How much could you really fuel the product release fire? I don't know, maybe more than you need. Maybe there's a point at which there's diminishing returns, but one last question about product releases. Is there anything special you could do in the sort of like marketing operations of this? Like the emails you send, the SMS you send, do you have like a private group that gets early access? Do you do anything in the ad account with past customers, like anything like that? So when it actually comes to the moment to release the product to the customer, anything that you found to be an important part of your process?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. We follow what I think is like a pretty standard launch practice of we're going to tease it out on social and email. We're going to create dope content of it, send people reminders, do the little launch thing. The one thing that we've done in the last year that has worked well, it's been an internal goal for us to grow our SMS list. I think an SMS subscriber is worth more to us than an email subscriber. So we've been doing giveaways on a lot of new product drops where we email our list and say, hey, if you want early access to this thing, and if you want to enter for a chance to win one, text us. That gets them to opt into our list. And then to make the launches a little bit bigger, we send a little bit of a clickbaity text to everyone who entered. And we say, hey, we're announcing the winner on our website right now. Go check to see if you won. Those campaigns, I'm not joking, have a 100% click-through rate. And we put a little line below the copy of the product that says like, and the winner of this giveaway is Andrew F. will contact you. So that's been like the one kind of thing. And there's been a couple times where like it's really crushed. There's a couple times where it just does okay. But that's the only kind of like fancy new product drop thing we do.
I sort of find that comforting because it means there's no magic here. It's just like do stuff well, like email, SMS, build your list,
Well, and like that's kind of what originally got us on this, new product drop cadence was we do the same strategy for every drop. We create content, post it on social, get some influencers involved, test messaging on the LPs, test prices. Like we did the same thing for every single watch. And some we launched would do 6 figures the first day. And some we launched would sell 7 the first day. And that kind of like put the spotlight back on product of like, oh, hey, there's only so much marketing can do here. If marketing's the constant, if we're, inputting the same actions for every product to drop and some crush and some don't, then it's not marketing, it's product.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think that's a really helpful way of framing that point. And it's probably also a really, again, a helpful thing to think about for brands who need to think like, how do we grow forward? Like it's not just marketing, right? It's like, it's about product release, all those kinds of things. Okay, let's shift over to some other stuff you're doing. Let me just ask you, did I miss anything on the product creation, product release side of things that you think people need to hear about?
No, I think you nailed it. I think everyone there should be taking more at bats. We do have the luxury in the watch category where like I can decide, let's sell $1,000 watch and we can go and make one because watches have that kind of built-in price flexibility. But I don't care if you sell hats or Q-tips or whatever, you can go make a little bit better version, a little bit more sustainable version, a little bit, branded feminine or masculine or, tactical or soft. Like you can make different versions of what you do already. And I think they're going to appeal to a different audience. So I just keep trying stuff.
You just referenced hat as an example of something where there maybe isn't this kind of ability to test price, but that's wrong. And the reason I know that's wrong is that the other best brand I can think of who had really nailed a product release strategy that drove their business forward is Melon, the hat company, which sells $80 to $90 baseball hats.
Yeah,
and I actually think you're wrong on the example, but it actually reinforces your larger point, which is that like there is stuff you can do and try. And I worked with them in their very early days of their business, and they tried very different kinds of hats. They had a $1,500 hat at one point.
Nice.
That they released 10 of. It was made out of stingray leather and had a diamond in it. CC Sabathia wore one. And
he would. That is the.
He still wears Melon.
Unfortunately, that is the TAM for that product, I think.
Right. Professional baseball players who are flashy. Just CC. I believe. There were some other guys who were flashy Major League Baseball players who also wore them. But they only made like 15 of the hats, so that was part of the deal. But anyway, the point is, like in the early days, it didn't take off right away, but they tried a lot of different stuff, including in the ad account, and found eventually the thing that really worked, and then dialed in a release strategy with that. And I think it's a perfect example of the thing that you're talking about. And also a really perfect lead into something else I know you've talked about. One of the episodes of your podcast that I found the most helpful is an episode about your price testing strategy. I just think this is still another area that's extremely underrated in e-commerce. I still think people just sort of pick the price of their product out of thin air. They choose it on vibes. They choose it based on what they think they would pay for the product or something like that. They really have no idea what somebody would pay and where the actual maximum profitability is, what their marketing can command, all that kind of stuff, the way the price signals value in their business, how it would affect their margins. They're just not thinking about those things. You probably have been one of the most vocal people in all of e-commerce about price testing, both in terms of how important it is to what you do at Original Grain and also methodologically how you actually do it. Can you just talk through what price testing looks like in Original Grain right now and sort of how you got there?
Yeah, it started 3 years ago. It was my first year there. We had grown our site sessions by 100% for the first half of the year, and revenue had grown like 40%. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, that's not good. What are we doing? And dug into some of our data, and conversion rate had basically been cut in half. And I was like, all right, that's not good. What are we going to do about that? I met with a bunch of CRO kind of experts and agencies and softwares, and I didn't believe any of them were going to make a big impact. I think all Shopify stores today have enough CRO built into them. And as long as people can find what they're looking for, get to the PDP and checkout page easily, like it's fine. So I knew there had to be more to this, conversion rate optimization thing than buttons and navigations and site structures. And that's when we started to look at price. We had a quote tested price that year, but it wasn't a test. We changed the prices of things for a month. And we were like, well, that seemed to go okay. And then we'd change them for another month, and we were like, that's worse. Let's not do that again. But it wasn't, reliable testing. So that's what brought us to INTELLIGEMS, which is the software we use for price testing, and that allows us to A/B test everything in real time. So we immediately tested all of our top watches. We tested them higher and lower, and really, we're really, really surprised at the results. Our higher end watches could be priced higher and would produce a higher profit per session, and our lower priced watches could be priced lower, and conversion rate would increase so much that we're making up for the loss in gross margin by how many more people were buying them. And this really kind of opened our eyes to wow, we set our prices 6 years ago and haven't thought about them. That's probably a mistake. And since I've been speaking about it publicly, that's where most e-com brands are coming from. They picked their prices
absolutely
on a gross margin goal that incorrectly assumes one price will produce the same amount of orders as another. Because you shouldn't be shooting for 80% or 70% margins. You should be shooting for the maximum amount of profit per website visitor, and real price split testing is the only way I know how to do that. And then what's been interesting is we've been price testing every quarter for 3 years now, and different prices win all the time. So it changes seasonally with Christmas and Father's Day. It changes with the economy. It changes with the president. So it's not something that's one and done, but it gives us the kind of confidence that every day throughout the year, we have priced our products at a level that are going to be extracting the most profit possible.
So I think one of the first things you said there is extremely interesting, which is that everybody is willing to do CRO or believes that CRO is going to help their business in some way, the really kind of classic stuff. But so few people are still so nervous to test their price, and it's a weird bias. Why are people so willing to do the one and not the other? Is it just because they've heard that CRO is good? What do you think?
I think CRO early on had good branding, and I think it
yeah.
had I think it had a little bit of what media buying had in the last decade, where it was kind of mysterious and no one really knew what all was going on in there, and everyone's CRO, we should pay someone to do that because that's important. You don't need to pay anyone to do it. I don't think I'm a CRO expert by any means, but in the last couple of years we've quadrupled the business while maintaining our conversion rate, and AOV has gone up. And a ton of it has just been about testing prices. And to be fair, we were nervous before we did this, because as a watch company, we want to hold some kind of prestige. We're obviously not anywhere near the luxury watch brands up there, but compared to most Facebook ads you see, we try to present ourselves as a valuable quality product. But at the end of the day, like, we're in this to keep the business going, and to do that, you got to make as much money as possible. And yeah, it's been another thing that's given us the freedom to go develop those higher end products, because higher prices won on some existing ones. So yeah, it's been really eye opening to the biz, and we think a lot about kind of price market fit now, not just product market fit.
You should be using INTELLIGEMS to do all the price testing that Nate and I are talking about on this episode. It's what Nate uses. It's what I use. It's what my clients use. I think nearly every one of my clients is using INTELLIGEMS for some amount of testing, both CRO testing, offer testing, price testing, all kinds of stuff. And it's really about the ability to think about a profit first approach to your business, driving business through that. INTELLIGEMS is a very easy tool to set up in your business. The install is quick. You don't need any crazy technical expertise. They will help you with it and get you set up so that you can start price testing today. And as Nate talked about on this episode, as I see all the time, there is real margin benefit, real profit per visitor benefit, which is their God tier metric, profit per visit, right? There's real benefit to testing your price. If you want to get more margin out of your business right now, it's very possible that the way to do that is to raise your price. It's also possible that the way to do that is to lower your price. It's also possible that the way to do that is to change your free shipping threshold. It's also possible that the way to do that is to change your first purchase offer, the 10% off you offer to every customer who signs up for your email list on the pop-up on your website, whatever it is. All of that is very easy to test. And if you are an operator or executive driven to operate excellently in your business and grow your business profitably, INTELLIGEMS is an incredible tool to make that all happen. Go to intelligems.io, use the code FARIS20, FARIS20 to get 20% off your first 3 months of INTELLIGEMS, FARIS20. Get started testing price, offer, free shipping threshold, and all the regular CRO stuff you would do today with INTELLIGEMS. I like that framing so much. I think the combination of all the talk about product and then the price testing might reinforce a larger point, which is that, like, to create larger growth moments in your company, you need to test bigger swings. Like, just sort of by definition, the larger the thing that you test, the more likely it is to have a very large impact on your business, and price is just a much bigger change to the customer's experience of your product than the copy on the PDP, or something like that. Now, I think there's value to figuring out copy on the PDP. You and I both would test price and copy on PDP with INTELLIGEMS. You could do both there really easily. Like, it's like, so it's not like you have to choose, but like, it's just that I would just expect price to make a bigger impact, because the closer you get to testing the offer, and I define offer as the combination of product and price, then the more likely it is to have a major impact on the customer's sense of the product, willingness to pull out their wallet, all those kinds of things. Yeah, that's at least the way I would frame it. I don't know if you'd frame it any differently than that.
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly the same way. And like, I really think, you can look at product as like you're halfway there. Like, I buy a copious amount of Red Bulls, right? If these cost $20 a can,
some might say too many.
Yeah, some 10 out of 10 doctors, but whatever is what it is. But if Red Bull is $20 a can, I would find a different way to get caffeinated. And like, it's not even that I can't afford $20 a can. I could buy that today and not sweat it. And it's not that I don't like the product anymore, but the price to value in my perception gets thrown off, and I'd go drink a bunch of Coke, or I'd switch to Celsius or Monster, one of those drinks for heathens. But because it's priced right, I buy it again and again and again. And I think everything applies to that. Like, I don't think there's a product that you can say there's no price ceiling on, and I just think it matters a ton to your customers.
But to that point, you think about a Red Bull, and there's like direct competition with another brand on the shelf next to it in the place you buy it, right? Like, almost anywhere you buy Red Bull, I don't know, maybe you have like a subscription or something, D2C. I'm not sure.
I had a fake wholesale account at one point that got found out when I moved. They were like, "This is a residential address," and I was like, "Yeah."
I don't know, but I consume a lot. Okay, great. Yeah. But like, almost anywhere people are buying Red Bulls, right? It's literally right next to other products that have very similar value propositions at and the competition is right there in front of your face, like something like fashion is famously different in the price sensitivity. And in fact, like the Rolex type thing is a great example. Like if I just told you from like if I just told you I'm going to start a company and we're going to sell a watch that costs, I don't know what upper end Rolexes cost. Do you know? Yeah, I'm gonna sell $30,000 watches. You would say you are crazy. You would say it is as crazy as selling a $90 baseball hat or whatever I said. Mellon is selling at or whatever it is, right? Or a $1,500 baseball hat, right? It's like the notion that that you would do that if you didn't know that category existed would be crazy. But what it speaks to is that there is, as you said, price market fit in different ways in categories that are sometimes surprising for people. And people are, I think, scared to go test this. They don't feel like they can do these kinds of things and break out of their current, whatever, even if it would have like a potentially really big impact on their business. And I think people just have not thought creatively about those kinds of things, or maybe just haven't thought enough about what is actually possible with their customer, et cetera. So, yeah. Anyway, I think you're really right, and I think it's a really helpful way of thinking about things. What about methodology? I know you've talked about this on your podcast. If you want to just point people there, that's fine. We can link the episode. But anything else about sort of how you go about price testing?
Yeah, kind of the basic strategy, whether I'm doing this before a holiday period or the start of the year, or whether I'm doing it because of tariffs. Kind of phase one of price testing starts with large gaps. So, if a watch usually costs 300, I'll test it at 250, 300, 350, and 400. These big wide gaps that are, 20% swings in either direction. Phases 2 and 3 narrow in on the winning prices from there. So if 351 wins, then I'll test 329, 349, 379. And then 379 wins, I'll test 369, 379, 389. And by the end of that, that process usually takes 4 to 6 weeks. We're leading into our Father's Day sale, and we're like, cool, now we know with 100% certainty that at this point in time in the market, this price is extracting the most profit per session. So let's roll that out for the next, 4 to 6 weeks.
Do you get any customer blowback? Like, I saw this watch was priced here and now it's there. Like, I think operators are afraid of this.
Yeah, not much. I don't really know how INTELLIGEMS does it, but it's really good about making sure if you come to our website, whether you come on your phone or your computer, you're going to get the same price. And then we just tell our customer service team, hey, like if it ever happens, this is the lowest price we're testing. You can offer someone that.
Yeah. And then it probably turns that into a moment that converts more customers. Right?
Yeah.
Right. It ends up being a win. Yeah. Everybody's worried about customers freaking out about price. I just have never seen it. Never once.
No, they don't. And I think in a world where like we've been overrun with inflation the last couple of years, like I think people are less price sensitive than you might think because everything's gotten more expensive.
Yeah.
And like yes, people are struggling financially, but I think it's just something they've accepted. Like they've accepted like, yeah, prices are going up everywhere. It is what it is.
We're getting close to out of time. There's a little bit left that we had talking about, but we could leave it for now. Is there anything else burning for you that you think is like crucial to what is you're seeing be successful? Or this is sort of top of mind for you as you think about marketing right now and D2C that you think like people just need to know, need to hear, like just insights, thoughts, anything like that, that is your most burning insight?
Yeah, kind of like biggest thing I'm hot on right now, especially with like, I don't know what you're seeing out there. Every brand I'm talking to is scared and maybe not off to the hottest start already this year, and then tariffs hit and market uncertainty hits. Like, I think now is the time to lean into doing very few things really, really well.
Yeah.
Like just get excellent at a couple of things. One acquisition channel, a good product strategy, I think will take you a really, really long way. And there's so many, shiny new tools and tactics out there. Everyone's hot on AI creative for a week, and that's fine. But like, I would really take this year to just kind of put your head down, get excellent at what you're doing already, get consistent at what you're doing already. I think that'll pay off in the long term for sure.
That's fantastic advice. I think it's really good. Good spot to end on. Nate, you are on X at Nate Lagos. That's linked in the show notes as well. Everybody ought to follow Nate to get Really great stuff. One of my favorite follows on X, and has been the genesis of you and I becoming friends, which is great. And then listen to Tactical and Practical, Nate's podcast as well. Anywhere else you want to point people to?
No, that is it. Go to
Okay.
originalgrain.com and buy a watch if you're interested in supporting me. That'd be great. And then as a 3-time Andrew Ferris podcast guest, I'd like to ask you an important question. Would you like to make your first appearance on Tactical and Practical?
Yes, I would love to.
Let's
of course.
go,
Just send me the link. Tell me
All
where
right,
to do
we'll
it.
do.
All right. You didn't have to do that. That's very kind. Okay. All right. Thanks, Nate. I loved that conversation so much. It's something that I'm going to send along to brands that I'm working with because I think it will really, really help them, especially thinking about product price, etc. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. As much as I did. If you did as well, you should subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. I've got more interviews like this coming up. Very soon I'm going to have Bear Hamlin from Born Primitive, another mid-8-figure e-com business that has learned a lot. They were barely profitable 2 years ago and then turned it around really fast, grew a whole bunch, generated a whole bunch of additional profit. Bear's going to talk all about it. One of my favorite brands in e-commerce who I've known and worked with for a long time. You're not going to want to miss that conversation. So subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. You can also reach out to me at podcast@ajfgrowth.com if you have any comments, feedback, anything like that. And of course on Twitter at Andrew J. Ferris. Don't forget to follow up with my sponsors, INTELLIGEMS, where you can use the code Ferris20 to get 20% off your first 3 months. So you can do price testing the same way that Nate and I are talking about. And of course, also More Staffing, my just longtime partner in this. I love More Staffing so much. Morestaffing.co/AF to get started. Get on a call, consider hiring incredible talent from the Philippines in your business. That's it for this episode. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you next time.